It's time to create your audience avatar. Now I know what you're thinking. Sunny, that was a great movie from like the early 2000s, with the little blue people. But what in the world does this have to do with my podcast? I'm just kidding. No, that actually was a really good movie. But avatar refers to your audience. Who are you talking to every time you turn that microphone on and you record? Because here's a quick tip that someone gave me a long time ago. I think it was a professor when I was going to journalism school. This is a great tip. And this applies to whether you're doing a podcast or you're on radio or television, doesn't matter. Whenever you are taking a message and trying to get it out to the masses, you are never speaking to the masses. You are speaking to one person. Right now, as I'm recording this video, I'm talking directly into the camera lens and I am speaking to you, not to other students that take the class. I am talking to you, and it makes a huge difference in how your message is perceived and how your audience feels about you. And that relationship, because it really is, it's a relationship you're developing with your audience. Now I want you to think about this. When you listen to a podcast, how do you listen to a podcast? Do you listen to it with your family around and everyone's huddled around your iPad and you're all listening to the same podcast? Probably not. Podcasting is a very personal experience. We're usually, and I wish I had my earbuds here, we usually have our earbuds. Imagine my earbuds, putting in the earbuds in my ear, and it's plugged into like our cell phone or our iPad, some sort of mobile device, because most podcast listening actually doesn't happen on a computer. It happens on some sort of mobile device. And the words that the podcaster is saying are going straight into our heads, into our ears. And that makes a big difference. It's not corporate listening, corporate viewing, right? You are consuming this on a very personal level. So when you reach out to your audience, it needs to be personal as well. One of the things that used to drive me crazy is people would come to me and they would have a radio show or a TV show, and they would say, "Hey, Sunny, we just want to take old episodes and we're just going to put it on as a podcast. Can you help us with that?" And I would be like, "Actually, I think you need to find somebody else." Because I come from that industry. I come from radio and television. I know how different it is to give a message, when millions of people are watching at the same time or whatever, as opposed to it really feeling like an intimate experience. And what we're doing on radio and television does not apply well on podcasts. It's just a totally different format. So in order to create this relationship with your listeners, you have to know who you're talking to. Who is your avatar? Who is your audience? Now, having said that, sometimes you can't control who's listening to your podcast, and I get that. In fact, one of the first podcasts I created was a show for pregnant women. It was called Preggy Pals. It's actually still available if you want to Google it or search for it on your podcast app. And I thought I was creating this audience for people who wanted to have a pretty standard birth. You go to a hospital and, you kind of follow, the typical rules and stuff. I just wanted to know what that process was like. Come to find out, after my show had been out there a while, I realized really quickly that most of the people listening to my podcast were actually people who had done that process, right? They've gone the normal way of having a baby, and they didn't like it, and they wanted to try something different. So my audience started reaching out to me and suggesting episode topics that were about home birth, that were about birthing centers, using doulas, using different techniques and birthing styles that I honestly didn't even know existed. But you know what? I had a podcast about pregnancy and childbirth, and my audience needed that kind of information. So I tell you all that to say, the people that listen to your show may end up being a little bit different than who you thought it would be. But still, going through and having these avatars for your audience is really important. And you may start out with one, And then realize that you've got a whole other group of people that are also listening to your show. So you may create a second avatar. So you can have multiple avatars, but whenever you're doing an episode, I want you to think about who that person is. And I want you won't have a lens like I do right now, but you'll have your microphone. And I want you to look into the microphone. Sounds a little weird, I know, but just roll with me on this. And I want you to talk directly to that person. So right now, we have to figure out who this avatar is. And you need to start with what you know and what your intention is. So think about who you want to listen to this episode. As you're creating your podcast, who is this ideal person that's going to be consuming it? And I've created a document for you. And it's pretty basic. It doesn't get too detailed. If you want to really dive into this topic, there's a lot of different handouts you can download for free on the internet. Just search for avatar, business avatar, things like that, and a ton of stuff is going to pop up. But I've really catered this towards the information that's usually important for podcasters and podcast audiences. So if you haven't already, download this document, and we're going to go through it a little bit and point out some of the key things and why they're on this form. So what is the name of your avatar? Make up a name. Maybe it's Polly the Podcaster. Make it fun, but actually assign a name. You don't need a last name, but I want you to really humanize this. They have to have a name, okay? And truly, my avatar is called Polly the Podcaster, so that's why I use that. But you come up with your own. So that's the name, right? Come up with a name for your avatar. What is the age for your avatar? And you can be an age range. You don't have to say, well, she's 26 and was born in November. Seriously, no, we don't need to do that. Have an age range. It's 25 to 45. That's kind of a big age range, but that's okay. You can create multiple avatars. So you have your age, your gender. Some shows are specifically for men. Some shows are specifically for women. Most of the shows that I have produced have been focused towards women because they're focused on parents and families. So my avatars have always been women. That doesn't mean men don't listen to my show. In fact, I have a lot of men that reach out to say, I found this pregnancy show for my wife who's 5 months pregnant and really needs this information. But that's not who I'm reaching out to. When I talk in my podcast and in my scripts, how do I write things? I'm writing them for a pregnant woman, okay? What is their education? Might be important depending on your podcast. What is their occupation? And it's okay to just kind of make this up if you're like, geez, I don't know. There's no test. Don't worry about that. You're literally developing a persona here. So be creative if you want. What is their income level? This could be very important down the road if you decide to work with advertisers, because usually advertisers want to know what your audience's income level is so they know what products they may want to purchase from them and if their product would be a good fit. So start thinking about that. What is their income level? Relationship. So this would be, are they married? Are they single? Are they divorced? I would even throw kids in the mix here. It's important to know if your avatar is has a lot of kids. That can be a huge responsibility. Trust me, I know. I've got 4 of them. It's a huge responsibility. And specifically for my shows, I wanted to know how many kids. I wanted to know, were they pregnant with their 2nd child, their 3rd child, their 4th child? Where are we at here? So that information can be really important. Then I have some general questions. Why would your avatar listen to your podcast? What are you providing in your podcast that they're not going to get elsewhere? Think about that personal relationship. What information are you giving them that is so important they're going to choose your podcast over a blog, over a YouTube video? What is that? What's a typical day like for your avatar? Now, in my case, I'm reaching out to pregnant women. They may be waking up in the morning. Every day may be different for them depending on how they're feeling. One day they may be spending a lot of time in the bathroom. Another day, they may be all day at the doctor's office. Their day could be all over the place. But it's important to kind of go through that. And I think that asking this question is important to understand what they might be doing as they're listening to your podcast. You don't want to give your audience a ton of things to do if you know they're already extremely busy people. They don't have time to like your Facebook page and subscribe to this and whatever you want them to do. The whole list of stuff that so many podcasters ask their audience to do. I know with my shows, I have to keep it super duper simple. You know, there's one ask in the whole show, and that's what I keep going back to each time. So I just made it really simple for my audience. But think about what their average day is like. What could they be doing as they're listening to your show? What are their other responsibilities? Next question. What challenges is your avatar facing? This is really good for episode content, right? You want to help your audience. So what are some of the challenges as it relates to your podcast that you can help them with? That's a great way to come up with episode ideas. Next question, what does your avatar want? Now, I know this is an open-ended question. They want $1 million. No, think about it as it relates to your podcast, right? Why would they be reaching out and searching for a podcast like yours? You know, you can also get more general with this. What are some of their goals that they want to achieve in life? You know, whatever you want to do here. Again, we're just trying to create this persona around this person that you're going to have a one-on-one relationship with. And the last question on our form here is, what else is important to your avatar? I've listed some things here, but really niche this down a little bit.